Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here. I appreciate the University of Victoria that has given me this opportunity. Catherine, Deneen, all my professors who have supported me through this year in Victoria. I'm from Toronto, so their support has been instrumental, and all the faculty. And I felt the first time, I'm just saying what I'm feeling right now before, all the staff who have with, your gorgeous smiles and beautiful hearts who have catered to us and made us feel at home and really special. It's a special, sacred place. Speaking of sacred, thank you. So acknowledgement and gratitude. I respectfully acknowledge that I am on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. I recognize and honor their stewardship of this land since time immemorial. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to be present here and to participate in the Company of Ideas Forum at the Jeffrey Rubinoff Sculpture Park. I extend my sincere thanks to the Jeffrey Rubinoff Foundation for supporting this gathering and fostering the ongoing exchange of ideas in such a remarkable setting. I also wish to express my gratitude to the University of Victoria, my advisor, Dr. Antliff, and my professors for their continued support. Thank you. So the theme of my presentation is, can non-religious art be sacred? Sacred forms, art, and the transcendence beyond religion. The spiritual nature of art. The sacred has often been associated with the idea of God or divine, made tangible through ritual and expressed with reverence, awe, and veneration. This sense of the sacred has long been a driving force behind artistic creation. However, I contend that in order to decode the sacred in art, one must first decode the container through which it is enacted, namely the inner space shaped by ordinary moments of contemplation and reverence for love, beauty, and human experience and transformation. As Lucchesi emphasizes, the sacred in art is not merely found in external symbols or rituals, but in the artist's and viewers' capacity to engage with an inner dimension of meaning and presence. This space, whether it be within the artist, the observer, or the work itself, becomes the conduit through which the sacred is expressed and understood. Iranian poet and filmmaker Farukh Farrokhzad, writing in the secular yet spiritually charged language of modern Persian verse, often rooted sacredness in embodied experience, love, and elemental connection, rather than in doctrinal belief. Similarly, painter Vasily Kandinsky believed abstraction could transcend material reality and stir the soul, offering viewers a non-religious but deeply spiritual experience of art. Okay. Throughout history, art has served as a powerful means of introspection and a way to encounter the divine, whether within religious or secular contexts. In religious traditions, art is often a direct expression of faith, seen in the soaring frescoes of Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, the geometric beauty of Islamic architecture, like Isfahan's Imam Mosque, or the symbolic precision of Tibetan sand mandalas, each inviting the viewer into a deeper spiritual or meditative state. Hindu temple carvings, rich with deities and cosmic narratives, function not just as decoration, but as visual scripture guiding devotees toward the spiritual liberation. Yet the search for meaning and transcendence through art is not confined to religion. In secular settings, artists like Caspar, David, Frederick evoked the sublime through landscapes that provoke existential awe, while Rothko abstract canvases aim to stir deep emotional and even spiritual responses without reference to religious doctrine. Contemporary artists like James Turrell use light and space to create environments that encourage stillness and self-reflection. In music, works like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony resonate with a sense of unity and wonder that feels spiritual in nature, though not explicitly religious. Across these diverse expressions, art remains a bridge between the self and the sacred, the known and the ineffable. The sacred, however, has traditionally been considered as something separate from human experience, associated with gods, rituals, and doctrines. Eliot's division between the sacred and the profane, where the sacred belongs to gods, rituals, and myth, and the profane to the ordinary, everyday world, draws a firm line that doesn't always hold up when we look closely at how people actually live and experience meaning. While his framework has been influential, it can feel too rigid and detached from the ways many cultures and individuals find the sacred in the midst of daily life. For many indigenous traditions, for instance, there is no clear separation between sacred and profane. Everyday actions, preparing food, walking the land, speaking with elders, are carried out with an awareness of spirit and presence. The land itself is sacred, not just because of ceremonies that happen on it, but because of ongoing relationship and care. In contemporary life, the idea that sacredness is only found in temples or religious texts falls short. A quiet walk at dawn, the act of caring for a loved one, moments of deep stillness or beauty, these can all carry a sense of something larger, something deeply meaningful. In Zen practice, enlightenment isn't reserved for some special place or ritual. It's found in the act of sweeping a floor or arranging flowers when done with full attention and presence. The so-called profane can become sacred simply through the way we engage with it. Eliot's dichotomy, while useful in understanding some aspects of formal religion, doesn't account for the full range of human experience. The sacred isn't always set apart. Sometimes it's right here. We went into the quiet, unnoticed corners of everyday life. Rather than being separate realms, sacred and profane might just be different ways of seeing the same world. But what happens when the sacred is no longer tied to specific religious practices or images? How can we approach art, particularly secular or non-religious art, as sacred? I contend that sacredness in art can be understood as an experience, one that arises from the viewer's or creator's encounter with transformative forces, such as love, death, nature, everyday and existential struggle. The Heron. This is a poem I wrote. The heron sits silently on the rock, the waves lapping softly on the shoreline. The next moment, the heron opens its wings wide, the air catching under. As it soars into the darkness, the heron and I are immersed in a tranquil night, the darkness, the silence, and the gentle waves, feeling an intense oneness with the cosmos, with a power beyond the mundane. I feel one in this vast expanse with the symphony of the waves, the bird flutter, and the shadows the night casts, connected to sacred. Rather than existing outside oneself, the sacred is intrinsic to introspection and presence. It arises from being alive and engaged with the world around us, not solely from faith in God or adherence to religious doctrine. At this stage of alchemical journey, something essential begins to shift. The tight boundaries we've drawn around ourselves start to loosen. The sense of being a separate, self-contained individual begins to dissolve, not in a dramatic explosion, but more like mist lifting from a field at dawn. What once felt like a firm line between me and everything else begins to blur, revealing a quiet truth. We were never truly separate to begin with. The inner and the outer worlds mirror each other, and a deeper rhythm, one that holds both the personal and the cosmic, starts to make itself known. It's not about losing the self, but about discovering that the self is woven into a much larger whole. This is where real transformation begins, not just a change in perspective, but a change in being. The spiritual of form and color. A pioneer of abstract painting, Wassily Kandinsky saw art might be a spiritual tool. In Über das Geistig, in der Kunst, on the spiritual in art, Kandinsky stated that color is the keyboard, the eye is the hammer, while the soul is the piano of many strings. The artist is the hand through which the medium of different keys causes the human soul to vibrate. By means of abstraction, Kandinsky aimed to awaken spiritual truths existing outside of physical reality. For Kandinsky, the sacred in art transcended religious symbolism to include the emotional and the spiritual impact art might have on the human soul. Non-religious art can thus be sacred in that it addresses human experiences that resonate with the viewers on a deep existential level. In her article, A Conversation about the Sacred in Art from Kandinsky to the Present, in Journal of Literature and Art Studies, Lucchesi argues that even art free of religious subjects can have a sacred essence. She contends that the great transcendent experiences art inspire define the sacred rather than solely religious imagery. Modern and contemporary artists can produce works that appeal with a sense of the divine, therefore providing moments of transcendence, hope, and deep meaning, just as Kandinsky sought to convey spiritual truths using abstract shapes. The sacred survives even in a secular age, Lucchesi notes, because it speaks to universal experiences and human emotions. The sacred in Farrokhzad's poetry. Iranian poet Farrokhzad shows how sacredness can arise from everyday life without depending on religious doctrines in her iconic poem, Tavalludi Digar, Another Birth, drawing on personal experiences while tying them to themes that reverberate with the human condition. Farrokhzad frequently delves into themes of everyday love, self-liberation, metamorphosis, and death in her writing. In Another Birth, Farrokhzad writes, همه هستی من آیه تاریکی است که تو را در خود تکرار کنان به سحرگاه شگفتنها و رستنهای ابدی خواهد برد. من در این آیه تو را آه کشیدم آه. من در این آیه تو را به درخت و آب و آتش پیوند زدم. My whole being is a dark verse that carries you within it again and again to a dawn of eternal growth and blossomings. In this chant, I sighed for you, sighed. In this chant, I entwined you with the tree, the water, the fire. Here, Farrokhzad describes her existence as a dark verse, a deep, almost enigmatic force that leads to eternal growth and blossoming. The repetition of the verse evokes a sense of ritual, a sacred act that binds the poet to the natural world. By entwining being with the tree, the water, and the fire, she creates a profound connection between the self and the elemental forces of life. Sacredness in Farrokhzad's poetry emerges not through religious symbols, but through exploration of existence and the cyclical processes of nature. Sacredness, according to Farrokhzad, can emerge from the most basic parts of being human. The sacred is not to be discovered in rituals, rites, or symbols, but in being present in one's life to the fullest, in making profound and life-altering connections with one's environment and the people.